Joe Newell, DamRiverSports.com, and today I am joined by an old friend. I don't know, use old, maybe that's not the right word, right? But we do go back a little ways. We were classmates at GW, teammates as well. I use that term loosely for me. We'll learn more about what it meant for him. But this is Donald Smith. Donald, welcome. Thanks for coming on.
It's good to be here. Good to be here, Joe.
Yeah, man, absolutely. If I can, I just want to let everybody know, go through a few, just kind of the history of your accolades a little bit real quick, so we have a framework for what we're talking about today. I mentioned just a moment ago that you and I were classmates at GW.
Yes.
Class of '86.
Yes.
Donald played football, basketball, and track while at GW, lettered in all three of those sports. Football was seemingly your big passion. You accepted a scholarship to Liberty University.
Yes.
Played football at Liberty. You were drafted by the Vikings in '90.
Yes.
Played also with the Cowboys in '91.
Yes.
Before moving on to the Canadian Football League, where I think you joined initially Winnipeg, I want to say, with the Blue Bombers.
Yes.
And then I've got Memphis, Toronto, and Hamilton stops in there as well in the Canadian football. So 9 years in the Canadian Football League. Best I can tell, you can correct me on any of this stuff. 4-time All-Star in the CFL.
6.
6-time All-Star.
Yeah.
Okay, stuff I was finding online wasn't complete, so I was trying to make sure. I assume that All-Star is the equivalent of what you get All-Pro in the NFL?
Yes.
Right, correct.
Yes.
And I know you won 2 Grey Cups while there in '96 and '97. If you don't know what the Grey Cup is, that's the Canadian Football League's equivalent of the Super Bowl.
Yes.
So to win championships there, you got to win a Grey Cup. But I think you played in more than just 2 Grey Cups.
I played in 4.
In 4 total,
yes.
Right. So 6-time All-Star, 4 times to essentially the Super Bowl Canadian Football League, winning that twice.
Yes.
But in addition to all those things, you're a pastor here locally, an educator.
Yes.
You've been a coach for quite a number of years as well, and you've been an artist your entire life.
Yes.
So you got a lot going on, man.
Mama had to keep me busy, keep me out of trouble.
Moms are good for that, right? So I'm just kind of giving all of you that history so you know where we're going to be going today and why we're having Donald in. So where did you grow up in Danville? Like, what part of Danville did you grow up in?
I grew up in a place called Alum.
Yeah.
It was over there in the Gibson area. We're trying to make that a historical site because it was the last black city in the Union. But I grew up in Alum Grove, but also in we call it a pave place, Southside Garden. Gibson is your landmark. To the right of Gibson is Southside Garden. They call it Clear Pond now. But it was Peyton Place or Southside Garden. That's where I grew up. And then in Alum Grove on Smith Street, from Gibson is the next road over, Smith Street. It's where my grandma lived, and I spent a lot of time with her. So,
With your grandma?
Yeah, and my church, my home church was Shallow Baptist Church in Alum Grove. I would spend a lot of my time. So, I call it out. Alum Grove is home for me.
Yeah. So
yes.
how would you describe your growing up there? I mean, we were talking just beforehand about going over to Peters Park and goofing off and getting into stuff over there. But how would you describe growing up there?
It was rough, but it was nice because, again, the neighborhood raised the kids. So if I would be somewhere in Alum Grove, and they know that's Auntie's boy. You better do what you're supposed to.
Yeah.
And if I got in trouble when I was at Gibson, I would have to walk home to Smith Street, but I had to go up by Gibson, go Broadnax, and then down Smith Street. I can really probably get about 3 or 4 whoopings before I got to my grandma's house. So they would see you and just say, "Aren't you Smith boy? Aren't you Auntie?" Yes, man. Where are you coming home? You sick? And if we lied, that's gonna be worse.
Yeah.
Now I got in trouble. Like, come here. They will whoop us. And then send us on. By the time they whoop us, they call on the person right next door. Yeah, don't you know he got in trouble? Next house, come here. So you get 4 whoopings before I even got home. So I made sure I stayed out of trouble.
A lot different than the times we live in now, where everybody almost, and I'm not speaking to the African American, I'm talking community in general, everybody. We tend to all live now more isolated and not really knowing our neighbors like we used to, that kind of thing. You know?
And we need to get back to that. But again, it's so much craziness going on.
Yeah.
It's almost hard to.
It is, yeah. I don't know if gone forever are the days where your parents would tell you to get out of the house when the street light comes on, you can come back in or not. But certainly kids spend a lot less time out in the neighborhoods and more connected online than they are anything else.
We respected our neighbors, so they could call us out because they also would care for us. If a family didn't have anything, I mean, it was grapevine that they will find out next thing you know they're bringing food to your house or whatever you need, or if they're finding something. If your AC is not working, they're gonna find somebody who'll bring you something. So it was community. Yeah, and that's really missing.
That's fantastic, man. So I mentioned a moment ago also that you're a lifelong artist.
Yes. Yeah.
And I know you've won awards both in high school and college for your artwork, and you're still doing artwork. Yeah. How did you get started doing artwork?
I was strongly ADHD. But back then it wasn't.
Before they were really diagnosing it, right? Yeah.
I mean, I had a hard time sitting still, but that was one of the things that my teachers allowed me to do. Growing up, we used to have little art competitions, and this kid with a wooden leg named James Cobbs, he would win the competitions all the time. And I'm competitive, so I want to beat him. So I would continue to draw, and one day I got him. Yeah. Then after that, he stopped drawing. I mean, he didn't stop drawing, but he stopped doing the competition.
Doing the competitions, yeah.
And then they just kept on from there. But it was most of my teachers that knew me when I was growing up. They would tell each other, "Let Don draw. He's gonna ace everything. If you don't let him draw, he's not gonna hear nothing you say." And it just kept me focused. It was like medicine for me.
Right. Yeah.
And it still is. When I was in camp and when I was in Dallas, they would get mad at me because they say, "You don't never leave your room." I'm drawing. And that would it kept me calm, kept me focused, kept me relaxed, so that I can focus on what I needed to do. Yeah. Yeah. So it's always going to be part of me.
And you're still today selling your artwork.
Yes. So when you was talking about church and everything else, the strongest thing I had in my life was the deacons. There was a deacon in Ebenezer, in North Carolina, Ebenezer Baptist Church. He was helping other families. This family didn't have any food, so he gave the family his food, and he ate ice cubes for 2 weeks. I'm like, whoa. Yeah. But he was strong enough to help another family, and he didn't worry about himself. But he knew he was going to be all right. And that just showed me the strength and power of just community, helping one another. And even though it may seem like you're suffering, you're not, because when I see that family doing well, it makes me feel better. Right. So it would those things just impact me. Yeah. Yeah. As a youth.
That's an amazing story, definitely. We need examples like that in our lives at all stages of life, right? Even as we get older, we still need people to set those kind of examples for us. So football seemed to be the thing that you, sports-wise anyway, that you really love to do. Did you start that young, or did you pick it up later? How'd you get involved?
Football was my escape out. What happened was I had an uncle from New York, my Uncle Jimmy. He saw me in the house too much, and my father was living in Baltimore, so I didn't have a father figure. There was mostly women in the house. Okay. And he said, "You need to get this boy out the house because he's just hanging around a bunch of women." And I wanted to say, "What are you gonna do?" She said, "Put him in sports." So I started playing sports. Growing up a nerd in the projects is not good.
So you're describing yourself as a nerd.
Growing up as a nerd in the projects wasn't good, so I had a lot of anger issues. Plus my father wasn't there, so I had a lot of anger issues. Okay. Football I mean, I was hitting kids, and the coaches cheering me on. I'm like, oh, I'm not in trouble.
So did you start this young then?
I started in Optimist League. I was about 8 years old.
Okay.
When I started playing, and one thing I could do, I was always angry, so I can hit you.
Yeah.
And I would just strike.
Found an outlet for that.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to tell a very brief story here, and to our friend George McDowell, I'm going to issue an apology right now. Sorry, George. By the way, George has got a phenomenal business up around Richmond. If you guys, Poor Georgie's, he makes amazing baked goods and things like so. Buy from him. That's going to be my mea culpa here, but let's see how you remember this. Okay, this is my memory of it. I think it must have been late in our senior year.
I remember that.
We were on the game field practicing. And at GW, and George McDowell was a receiver for us at that time, came across the middle, and I always felt like I played receiver, but I loosely played receiver, let's just put it that way. But I also knew that anytime I came into Donald's area, you better have your head on a swivel because he took offense to you being in his general vicinity. And George came across the middle, you're playing safety, and you decleated George. Like, he came off the ground, and I don't know if it was the violence of the hit that you put on him or the violence of hitting the ground afterwards. But I knew it was like the last play of practice, and we all had to line up and run sprints after that. And, of course, at that time, I don't know if they still do it, but at that time, you still had to wear all your gear for sprints. I mean, you've been out there for hours practicing, sweating, and if you didn't line up with your gear on, Coach would let you have it. I don't know if it was Coach Wall or who it was that day, but we all went to go line up, and George was over there without his helmet and his shoulder pads on. And Coach lit into him, and then George picked up his gear, and from that collision with you, his shoulder pads were literally split into two pieces. So he couldn't wear them for the wind sprints. Is that how you remember it? You remember it differently?
I remember it. Oh, man, me and George had some conversations about it, and I apologized to him later. But see, what happened was the play before. We had a small receiver named Calvin Carter.
Oh, yeah, I remember Calvin, yeah.
Well, they threw the ball to Calvin. I went up and caught the ball, intercepted the ball, and Calvin caught my legs. I'm like, Calvin, let me go, let me go. And he's trying to hold me up. Well, I landed first, and my heels hit the back of my head. I mean, they like, oh, Calvin, slam Donald. And they start cheering and laughing. And I'm like, oh, this supposed to be funny? And I said to myself, please don't throw the ball my way. And they threw it to George. He had to pay the price. I mean, they didn't hear me. And I said, oh, y'all think that's funny?
Yeah.
And I'm hurting. I mean, my back is screaming.
Yeah.
And I said, if they throw it, whoever's going to get it going to feel everything I felt.
And it just happened to be George.
They threw it right to George. And I let him catch it. I let him catch it. I could have picked it. I let him catch it, and I just grounded him all in.
Yeah.
He knew it was coming too.
Yeah.
Because he saw me angry. He was like, I hope they don't throw it. Oh, man, I had to apologize to him. But at the time, I didn't care. I was
and George wasn't a small dude. I mean, he wasn't super tall, but he was a thick.
George was thick. He should have been a linebacker.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm glad they threw it to him because probably he could have took that. He took that lick.
Yeah.
That I gave. Too many wouldn't be able to, because I went game time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, whatever that happened that day, it cemented your legend.
He didn't speak to me about a couple months.
Oh, man. Yeah, it was, in a lot of ways, I think the mentality of those that played prior to us, you know, both winning the state title in '82 and even going back into the '70s and stuff. And then we've got this 1968 state championship thing I got. There was just a different mentality in football than it is today.
Yes.
And you know, you took some offense to somebody getting the upper hand, you know. So so you played 3 sports at GW. If I remember right, in track, you hurdled? Did you run hurdles in track?
I was a hurdler. I did 110 hurdles, 300 hurdles. I did 400 relay, and sometimes a 4x4 relay.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, I mean, that's pretty typical for track. You got to be involved in multiple things, right? So what do you remember about choosing Liberty? Like, how did that process happen? Did you end up with schools coming and knocking on the door, or was it a real short list from the get-go?
I had some good offers. Wake Forest wanted me, but they wanted me as a receiver. Rutgers and Syracuse was writing me a lot, but my mother said it was too far away. There was Iowa was looking at me. I thought I was going to be a Tar Heel.
Okay.
I turned down everything. I wanted to be a Tar Heel. I was on their board. They was looking at me.
Okay.
That's all I wanted to be.
And why did you want to go to Carolina?
I just love that. I love Tar Heel. I love that. I love the basketball. I love the football team. I just grew up loving Tar Heels.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's where I wanted to go. And I think they got the person that was ahead of me. They committed, so then they let me go.
Okay.
So I was ready to go to the Army recruiter. Crazy part was coach from Heritage in Lynchburg.
Heritage High School.
Yeah, I called Liberty and said, y'all slipping on the kids from Danville. They said, you need to go and see them. They said, well, no. He's saying, I'm telling you, you need to go see them. So Liberty came down day before signing, and I was ready to go to the Army recruiter. He told me just wait a day. He said, if you don't hear from us tomorrow, then go ahead to the Army recruiter.
Okay.
I said, so I'll wait a day. And they called me the next day and offered me a full ride. Yeah. So I thank the coach from Heritage for speaking on me. We were rivals.
Yeah. Yeah. So, absolutely.
They looked after me, and it's a blessing. That's God watching over me. Just get me into place.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Liberty
was a fun. Liberty was an experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was an experience.
It's a different college environment. It's not the same as going off to Carolina or any of these other schools. It's being a truly Baptist school.
Yeah.
One founded in faith. It's definitely a different environment. But you had a lot of success there still.
Oh yeah. Well, again, there I really began to grow as a Christian, just understanding, learning more, learning how to deal in a different environment. The friendships, I still have friendships from Liberty now.
Yeah.
30, 40 years later, we just.
And prior to we started recording, you told me that's when you first felt the call of God on your life while you were at Liberty. One that you weren't ready to you didn't want to accept that call, right? It's like.
Yeah, it was. We was always have to go to chapel services, and Monday, Wednesday, Friday in the morning, and then you have to go in the afternoon. And a lot of times kids will go off campus, so they don't have to go to the Wednesday night or Friday night chapel service. Well, I was being lazy after practice. I was just tired, so I said, "I'm not rushing." So when most of the people that was gone already left campus, so I said, "You got to go to chapel." I said, "No worry." I went to the top where I don't have to see or hear nobody. It wasn't really the gym was a regular gym, but it had bleachers, and then it had a floor level, second level, and then more bleachers.
Okay. I
sat in the second bleachers, where usually the mats, the tarps are down, so you can't see. I just was back there, and man was preaching. Man, the pastor was preaching on feed my sheep. So I'm just being away from everybody. I don't want to hear nobody. Just want to get away.
Yeah.
And I hear somebody say, "Feed my sheep." So I'm looking around. All right, fellas, stop playing around. So usually we'll do stuff. We'd be in school. Be in the classroom, and the person's sleeping, and we say, "The teacher wants you to pray." And in the middle of the class, one of the players stand up and start praying. And then everybody's looking at it like, "What's your problem?" So we played jokes on each other like that. So
right.
I'm thinking somebody's messing with
you. Yeah.
So I'm like, "All right, man." And I'm sitting there watching, listening, and then hear it again. Feed my sheep.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I ain't playing. Listen, I ain't in the mood. Stop playing. I don't hear nothing. Nobody comes out. So I'm relaxing. I'm like, relax, please. The third time I hear it, I just start crying. Because I knew it was God talking to me.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, God, no. And being at Liberty, we used to say all the time, oh, here go one of them. They gonna be a pastor.
Okay, yeah.
So I'm like, oh, one of them, and man, I was like, no, Lord. And I just started telling Lord, I want to play football, this, I don't know. It was a lot of things I wanted. And later on, God shows me when I'm in Canada, about ready to retire, and God says, I gave you everything you want. Just give me half what you gave football. And I'm like, what? He said, I gave you. You got your football, you got your wife, you got your children, you got everything you want now. Now I need you to give me what I asked you. And I just pulled over on the side of the road and just started crying. I was like, oh, no. Then I said, no, Lord. You
so
bless
this is, just to put it in a time schedule or timetable, like right around maybe like 2000 time, somewhere around there?
I first heard a calling in '87.
Right.
My second year at Liberty. I heard the calling I heard the confirmation again from God in 99.
99, okay. Yeah.
And that's when he gave me everything I asked for. He said, you want football? Gave it to you.
Yeah.
You want a family? Gave it to you.
Yeah.
Because when I got married, I scared my mother. I'm in Canada, I'm working with an awesome Christian group of athletes, Christian athletes, and want to go with them, they wouldn't let me go.
Yeah.
They said, no, we're going to speak with kids. So them kids probably see you at them parties you're going to. So you ain't going to be partying and going to speak with us. I'm like, whoa. And I was battling because it won't me.
Yeah.
So I told God, I said, Lord, this is what I'm going to do. Because you know my thing, I'm either going to be hot or cold. I said, either you're going to give me the woman for me to marry. I saw a cherry red convertible Jaguar. I'm gonna buy that Jaguar, and I'm just gonna be a lover. I'm either gonna be hot or cold. I said, so if you don't send me who I need, I'm gonna be hot. My wife, which we were broken up, called me that day.
That same night.
That same night.
Now, where was she at that time? Because are you still in Canada at this point?
I'm still in Canada. We still kept in touch. We would still stay friends, but we call each other maybe once a...
Because you guys had started dating in high school,
yes.
But you weren't together at that particular time. No. Okay, right. So she calls you same night.
She called me that exact same night I spoke to God about that. And she was just talking, and I'm just quiet. And she was just like, why are you so quiet? I'm like, when we gonna get back? She said, we can get back now. Go home and play in the wet.
Wow.
I ain't seen her.
Did Denise say, why did she call you in the first place?
Just every blue moon, I may call her, she'll just call me just out of the blue moon.
Okay, so that had gone off and on, and then, but this time she called at a critical moment.
Bingo. I'm like, whoa. I'm like, okay, all right, I hear you, Lord. So go home, you plan the wedding. As soon as I get home, we get married.
Wow.
Then I called my mom, so I'm ready to get married. She's like, to who? I mean, so things just change.
Yeah.
But God, I listened with the call, and so far, again, 30 years.
You guys have been married 30 years now.
Got 2 kids.
That's awesome.
People call us the Huxtables. We just act crazy, have fun, and we just have fun. We just enjoy life, enjoy each other.
Yeah. In some senses, it was just always going to be the two of you, right? Does it feel that way?
When I first broke up with her,
but
she said she broke with me, and I said I broke with her. I don't go back to girls that I broke up with. So it was done. I mean, that was one of my principles. If you break up with a girl, you don't go back to her. And that was my thought process. We can stay friends, boom, and talking with God with that day, and I just told him, I said, God knows your heart. I ain't put no no nothing on God, like you got to do this, but he knew my heart. Like, I'm not going to play around. And these guys that they had, the team I had was with, they had some strong Christian athletes, strong. And they weren't afraid to challenge you. Yeah. And I needed that. And boom, it changed my relationship with God. Yeah. I mean, sometimes in church, you can go to church, but you ain't got to read your Bible. Right. That don't make sense. He's like, you on the team, but you don't practice. How you going to help us? And if you don't know what to do, I mean, so they really showed, and I really started to get into not religion, but just the following of God, following of Christ. And I really got serious about what I was doing, and my study began to just change, and just I didn't realize I was in the Bible so much. Yeah. But that's those things I was just wanted to talk about. So it just God really began to bloom in me and reveal in me just where I needed to be and what He wanted from me. So this is the back end of your career in the Canadian Football League. Well, this is still in Winnipeg. So this is your first stop in the CFL? This is my first stop in Winnipeg. Okay. And God gives me all these strong men because I'm just trying to make a team. Yeah. And then everybody, once we make the team, everybody going to get drunk. I don't do that. So y'all do what y'all want to do. I'm going over here. Okay. So I never really connected with the guys because they said, you don't go out with us. I said, I don't do those things. Right. So they start connecting me. You need to go hang out with these guys. I'm like, well, man, they just boring. But then as I got to know them, I realized, man, they just real good guys. They quiet because they don't want to make nobody feel bad about anything. Right. Yeah. But those were the people that everybody was going to, especially when they was going through a hard time. Okay. I started laughing. And then I became one of those guys. Yeah. The guys started sitting beside me and just started talking, man. I'm like, what can I do? I'm like, why you come to me? Yeah. He said, because I'm supposed to. But that's the standard that those guys set up. We're going to be the one role models to help other guys, strengthen other guys as iron sharpeneth iron. That's good. It don't matter if they go to Bible study. Our job is to make them better because they're going to make the team better. So I had some strong guys that I still keep in touch with a bunch of them today. That's great. Yeah. Yeah, those kind of bonds, man. You don't want to give up on those at all. Now I'm going to ask you something because you told me, I don't know when we had this conversation. It was sometime a while back. But you told me, and I can imagine this is true, when you play in the Canadian Football League, there are days where the weather for the game can be really, really difficult. Right? You see these old NFL films, and occasionally there's a really cold game. But I would imagine in the Canadian Football League, there are times where you got stretches of everything's cold. It won't times. It was going to be consistent. Certain months, we already know. What were the worst when you played in the CFL? What were the worst? Do you remember a game that was like this was just the worst weather-wise? My second Grey Cup was in Edmonton. It was. You're playing for Winnipeg at this point. Yes, it was freezing cold. But it was plenty of games. We played -20, almost -30. Air temperature? Good. First time I played in a game like that, I had on gloves. I mean, regular gloves you buy from the store. I mean, big gloves. I mean, I had on 3-4 pair of tights and then sweats. Yeah. And then put my stuff on. The coach like, you ain't really catch like that. I was like, Coach, you take these from me, I ain't catching nothing. You won't be able to feel your hands anyway. But I had to learn to adapt to it. Yeah, I had a good friend that he told me, he said, Donald, take that stuff off. He said, just allow yourself to get used to it. He said, eventually your body will allow you. He said, either you're going to get so cold that you're going to have to go in. And he said, your body going to shut down. So if you pee on yourself and defecate on yourself, he said, your body's shutting down. Yeah. So I'm like, what? He said, just let your body get used to it. He said, and then change don't focus on the cold, focus on something else. Yeah. And that helped me. So when I began when I was out there, man, all of a sudden I started focusing on the game and everything else. I forgot it was cold. And I'm out there and I'm taking my helmet off we talk and freeze, the sweat freezes on my head. So, I just stick my helmet back on. So, but it was.
So it's a whole nother level of cold, man. This isn't. I took my helmet off and the steam's coming off my head. The sweat, it's freezing on your head.
I'm telling you, it is. It's crazy, but it's constant like that. So your body gets used to it because during the day, it's freezing cold.
Yeah.
I didn't call it Winnipeg. I call it winter peg.
Winter peg.
Because it was, I'm like, this is the Arctic. This is so cold.
Yeah.
But it was constant.
Yeah.
But you get used to it, and I loved it. Because weather here, it may be 90 on Monday, then Wednesday is 56.
Right.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
But if it's minus 20, it's minus 20 for about 2 weeks, 3 weeks. So you're going to get used to it.
Okay.
And that's I loved it.
Okay.
So when teams came, and I know they came, especially when the American teams came in.
Yeah.
And they came in, it was nice and cold. I would just won't have nothing on, just looking at them. No gloves, just looking at them. They're like, man, you crazy.
Yeah.
I said, I already got you already.
I was going to say, it's like the rest of this game's over with already. You haven't even played it down yet. This game's over.
And when they hit that hard, oh, man.
It's got to be like playing on concrete, man.
We hit there's a guy that we played against in Saskatchewan. We called him MacGyver.
Okay.
But what he did was, he got his turf shoes and he screwed in, he hammered in little nails in the inside the little nubs of the bottom of the shoe. Yeah. So it's almost, man, he cutting on ice. I'm like, how's he doing this? And we trying to stop him. We sliding, and he's stopping on a dime. Yeah. And I grabbed his shoe one time and I tapped. I'm like, man, that's illegal. He said, they don't know man about that. Man, it was just, you learn so many tricks of the games and all that other stuff. And those gloves that everybody wears now. Yeah. That came from Canada. The guy that we called him Sandman, but I called him MacGyver. Mm-hmm. In Saskatchewan, they made a lot of glass. Okay. So he would come up in the game with glass cutters. These big gloves of about right here.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I've seen, yeah.
And man, he's catching the ball in the air. Stopping it. I'm like, oh, this is illegal. That should be. Yeah. So other players started using the glass cutters. So what he did was, he cut the glass cutters, and then he sewed a material on top of it, and made it those gloves, and called them glass cutters. Okay. And we were using them in Canada all the time. Yeah. Then one of the guys gave a pair to a friend in the NFL. One of his friends in the NFL. He started using it. Okay. And then the company bought them off of him, and they started making those gloves. Oh, wow. So I said, man, MacGyver just made some money.
He just made some money?
Because the NFL bought the gloves, no, not NFL, but the company bought the gloves off of him. Yeah. So that he couldn't sell them in the United States, but he could sell them in Canada. Okay. And that's how they get those gloves, those tactical gloves.
Necessity is the mother of invention, man.
That's why I called him MacGyver.
Put nails in his cleats.
Man, he put nails in his. I'm slipping, and he not slipping. And one of the guys said, "Check his shoes, man. He got that stuff." Like, how did you do that? He said, "I was just bored."
Did the refs ever call him out on it?
Pay no attention.
They're like, "We're cold too, man. Just do whatever you got to do."
He said, "As long as nobody's coming up bleeding,
right?
Don't worry about it."
So, wow.
It was crazy.
Wow. Almost like playing on ice. So when you got, just to backtrack just a little bit, when you got drafted by Minnesota, what was that like for you? How did you find out, first of all? Because I don't even know in 90 whether it's like you just watch it on TV, and this was later in the draft too, so.
You watch it on TV, but again, at Liberty, you can't have a television in your room. But I got to be in my room to wait for the phone call.
Because that's where your phone was, yeah.
I was rumored that I was going to go in the second or third round to San Fran. Mm-hmm. They took another guy, Eric Davis. What they said was I didn't look the part. Okay. Because I didn't like the lift. Liberty was strong with lifting, but they did it so much, and so many people had injuries. Yeah. I said, I came here to play, not to be a bodybuilder. Right. So that's another thing that kind of hurt me. That my coach told me. He said they like you, but you don't look the part. Okay. So I wound up going in the 10th round.
To Minnesota.
To Minnesota. And Minnesota got me so that I was told Minnesota picked me up because Dallas was going to pick me up as a free agent and use me as a special teamer until and let me get my barracks into the NFL.
Yeah.
So they got another guy named Kenny Gant. So when I went to Dallas the following year, because Minnesota wasn't even going to give me a chance, I was practicing I was barely practicing, and then I would get in the game for 1 or 2 plays. I know I averaged, I think, 5 plays the whole preseason.
Okay.
So, like, how am I going to make a team?
Right.
So it was just, I mean, that's all 3 games, 5 games, not 5 plays.
Right.
So it was just frustrating.
So how did you get to Dallas then?
The agent I had, Dallas was already looking at me before. They wanted me as a free agent, but when Minnesota drafted me, Dallas got somebody else. But when the season was over, when I got released the last cut, all the teams were locked, so they couldn't pick me up. So I went to the World League. One of the coaches from the CFL released me from there. I was hurt when I got released from the World League.
Okay.
That's when I came back home for a little bit. Then I went back to Liberty to really work. And then that's when I went to Dallas.
Okay.
Dallas picked me up. I trained so hard that when I went to the doctors to get the physical, the doctor said he doesn't have a pulse. I said, I'm alive. He said, I know that. He said, but we can't get a pulse. So they sent me downtown. They said, we need to figure out what was going on. They thought I had a heart problem. So doctor told, put me on a treadmill to walk, but he's still getting a pulse. So he said, start jogging. I said, how long am I going to jog? He said, until I get a pulse. I was on the treadmill for 20 minutes. He said I was probably one of the best trained athletes that he's ever met.
Okay.
And from then on, Jimmy Johnson told me, he said, I don't care what go on, you made this team. He said, where you go from here is on you. So
was Dallas aware of your medical reports and condition that you were in?
They knew this was at Dallas.
This was at Dallas.
Yeah,
okay, so I was thinking maybe this was back at Liberty or
Dallas had called me up there, and so they had brought me up early. I was at home training from when I got released from the World League. That was in, I think, November. Until April, I was in Danville.
Okay.
And all I did was train. I did was train and run and get in shape. Dallas brought me up in April. Signed me, brought me up in April, and then camp didn't start till July.
Right.
So I had time to adapt to Dallas, figure out what's going on, and that's when they found out how good of condition I was. I got so messed up with Minnesota because a lot of the players didn't want me there because they wanted their alumni, and it was. For some reason, there was a bunch of people from West Virginia there.
So when you say their alumni, like schools that they had gone to?
Yeah.
Okay.
So a guy that got a third rounder was from West Virginia, and we were battling. But I was sitting there laughing because I said it's not a competition.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you from West Virginia? I'm like, I just couldn't understand it. I said, bro, you can't touch me. But I knew they wanted him because they put the money in. And I talked to Minnesota. I said, listen to me, you got me in the corner. I said, you put me at free safety. I guarantee you within 2 weeks, I'm going to take your third place and your second place guy, and I'm going to challenge your starter. He said, we believe you can. He said, but we got money in them. We don't got the money in you.
Yeah.
You're going to stay at corner. And I was hurt. But again, it's things you learn in the business. And taking advantage of the opportunities. Sometimes in the NFL, because I came from a small school, I didn't take advantage of all the opportunities because I placed myself at a low bar. I'm lucky to be here. Just do the best you can instead of going everywhere, going to say challenge. So I learned from the NFL when I did that. So when I went to the CFL, they had kids from Florida State, from all the top schools. And they would tell me who they played for and who they played against. And I'm like, listen to me. And my mind was saying, challenge. I don't care where you're from. I mean, where's Liberty? Where's Lynchburg? I said,
it certainly at that time was not as well known as it is now.
But my thing was, I can show you better than I can tell you.
Yeah, it's good.
And they would look at me like, what? I said, I'll show you where I'm from. And next thing they know, start balling. And the next thing they were like, man, you didn't go to Florida? You didn't go to such and such, man. How in the world you didn't make it? I said, that ain't my concern. Right now, this is where I'm at.
Yeah.
And I stayed my focus. And that's how I thought I was going to get released from from Winnipeg, because they said the guys were telling about they got a thing called musical chairs.
Okay.
Where most of all the guys who made the team have lockers, and then he has a set of chairs, and that's your locker. But those are the guys who are going to be leading. And when I came in, I was one of those chairs. So I would just sit there and just look at lockers. And the guy said, what are you doing? I said, I'm trying to figure out which locker is going to be mine. He said, what? You cocky. I said, I can't go home. I cannot go home. I can't go home. Every day, a chair was leaving. And one day I came in, all the chairs was gone. And I'm like, oh, I can't go home again.
Just like all at once, all the chairs were gone?
No, every
So they were moving
day,
chairs. Yeah.
Somebody's getting sent home.
Yeah.
So I was hanging in there, and that morning I came in, my chair was gone. And I'm like, oh, man. And the guy said, Donald, come here. And we call him the Reaper, because he was the one that give you a ticket and drive you to the airport. He said, come here, he put his arms around me. He said, I'm sorry to show you this. And he took the thing off the locker.
Yeah.
My name was there. I'm like, And the guys, the vets were saying, we got 1 too many DBs. And Coach said, yeah. He said, you're going to start the first game. Donald starting the second game. When y'all going home? He said, I got the first game. And he started smiling. I'm like, what are you talking about? I go look at the second game. I got to go against Toronto.
Okay.
Toronto has Rocket Ishmael as the receiver. And that's who I'm going to be covering.
Yeah.
This guy has some Rudy.
Now, are you still playing corner at this point?
I'm still playing corner.
Okay. So you didn't transition over to free safety?
No, they wouldn't let me. Well, in CFL, most of the free safeties are Canadians, because you have to have a certain amount of Canadians and a certain amount of Americans.
Okay.
So free safety spot was mostly a Canadian spot. Corners from America.
Okay.
So he put me. I watched the first game. The guy has an awesome game, but he ain't playing against nobody. I said, man, how come I couldn't go against this guy?
Because you got to go against one of the fastest guys in the world.
Oh man, Rocket Ishmael, the Rocket. So I'm there, and I don't focus on some guys. They don't want me because they want the other guy because they know him. So they're saying nasty, negative stuff to me. You don't eat it. I just said, listen, let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Rocket had 2 catches for 14 yards. Guys were mad at me on the way home. I don't know why. And one of the guys told me, he said, because the other guys already sent home.
Oh, wow.
So when you go...
So they made that decision quick.
Yeah. It was going to be me or him. They was telling me, have your stuff packed, because you may fly straight from Toronto back home. If I don't have a good game, I'm going home. Wow. So when I was flying back, they knew. I was still on the plane. They said, boy, gone. We still were cordial because he went with another team. We still talk, but it was crazy. In that first year, I was isolated. Yeah. Only a few people talked to me because they wanted the other guy there.
Because they wanted the other guy.
Yeah. So it was different. I didn't expect that.
Yeah, that is different, definitely. So you had a nice long career in the CFL as well, yes. Like 9 years, is that correct? Then, like everybody else, at some point, you can't play the kids' game anymore. So Did you come straight back to Danville after that time, or?
Came back here. What I was going to do is get an education and start teaching. And as I started doing it, just had to start running little issues because I would always get the problematic kids. There was no problem with that. But I was going to take a job, I think, at Westwood. And they said, well, you're going to teach math because I know that's what you love to do. I said, good, I'll teach math and we're good. They said, but these kids, I said, I already know they're trouble, but as long as I'm dealing with just one period, I have no problem with it. Then they said, well, we need you to have them for math and history. I said, now listen to me.
These are kids that are struggling a little bit in school then.
I said, you're not going to put me with them all day because I know that's what y'all like to do. I said, I'm not doing it. So I'll do math and history. That's no problem because you know I love working with kids. So just as long as you don't give me all day because that's wear and tear on your body.
Yeah.
And I just came from football, so I just trying to relax a little bit also. Next thing you know, at lunchtime, I got the whole class, everything. And at that time, that's when one of my coaches called me from Liberty and said, "You still want a college coach?" I said, "Yeah, I'll take a chance on it." And I went to Liberty and started coaching.
But you were living in Danville and commuting back and forth to Liberty to coach at Liberty University.
Danville was going to be my setup. I was going to always stay in Danville.
Okay.
I love coaching, but I wasn't sure that's what I want to do. And I was not a very good coach. I wasn't loyal to my defensive coordinator, as I should have been. I was more for the kids.
Okay.
I was more for making sure they're taken care of, they're getting what they need academically as well as sports. Sports was good, but I was more like a counselor.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't take the game seriously because I didn't like their philosophy. And I was still had a player mentality. So if I didn't like your philosophy, I was going to do it my way. But I couldn't. And I feel bad. I didn't give it what I should have. But I also still. That's when I was still going through. God is speaking to me, and that's when I really started going into the ministry. And it was a pull: sports but ministry, sports but ministry. I love working with kids. I love working with young people. So that's the school, but ministry.
Yeah.
And that became my pull. I would leave practice in Lynchburg to drive to Bible study in North Carolina. And Coach like, we got a meeting. I said, Coach, I got to go to Bible study. I'm telling the coach, I'm leaving the meeting to go Bible study in North Carolina. So they kind of realized, I love what I did, but ministry was really pulling.
So God's calling was just pulling you a different direction at that time.
Yeah.
And so you're studying. What happened after that? Like you were at Liberty, I think you said around 3 years you were there coaching?
Two and a half.
Two and a half, okay.
Went back and came back home, started working in the school system, started helping out coaching, but really I was just finding who I was.
Yeah.
And went into the pastoralship. I should have really stayed a teacher.
Yeah.
But it's still, it's that's what God called me to do, so I'm doing it. And I'm really enjoying it. It's tough sometimes, but I like the challenge.
Okay.
I love trying to deal with people. I love trying to make sure they understand that the Bible is for every day. It's not just something written for the past.
Yeah.
And how to apply what you've learned in scriptures.
Yeah.
That was one thing that I saw that people would really, they know scripture, but they don't apply it to their life. I said, so you got $1 million, but you won't spend $1 of it because you want to just hold on to it. It's good to have money, at least let it sit in some interest and gain some interest in it, but you got to do something with what God gives you. And everything God gives you is better than money. So we got to learn to use what He gives you, the lessons that you learn.
It's good. So just to kind of bring all this together, You probably had many places you could be going. Even if you were heading into the ministry, you still had options.
Yeah.
Why'd you choose to come back to Danville?
I wanted to give back what I received. At one point, my wife didn't want to come back, but now she's glad she's back. But I mean, it was just, I wanted to give back. I think back on all the people that helped me. One was Mr. Owen, Marvin Owens. In football, Little League, his son was a running back, and I would thrash him. So he took me home. I mean, he snatched me, took me home, and said he's going to start staying with me because he realized I was an angry child. And he helped me understand the father figure. I mean, it was so many different people that helped me. The deacons that was at Shiloh, the teachers that was placed the classroom in. It was so many people that helped me that I needed to go back because there are some kids that are being left behind that I already saw that I wanted to work with.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just paying. I'm paying it back forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good, man. Well, Don, I want to say thank you for coming on. I think examples and stories like yours really important for kids that are growing up in the area now. I've got one that's I just finished the 9th grade. He's in the 10th grade coming up, but you know, having those examples out in front of everybody, and they're not just past examples. You know, I think sometimes we tend to look at what happened or what someone did in the past as just the past, but everything builds on itself and brings it forward. You know, and to see what God has done in your life, what He continues to do through you in the community is really encouraging and inspiring. And I'm glad that you and Denise chose to come back and raise your kids here, but stay in the community and give back to it, because I mean, that's the only way a community becomes strong. You know, it's the only way kids get lifted up. And just want to say thanks for doing that. And because we all need to do that. And so it's really encouraging. So congratulations on an incredible athletic career, but it seems like God's using you to do a whole lot more than you ever did on a football field in the community over all these years as well. And I want to say thank you for taking time out. Thank you for your friendship, even though you and I kind of have gone separate directions all these years. It's been a joy, man. Hey everyone, this is Don Smith, pastor, educator, artist, coach, but most of all, someone who just loves the community and continues to give back. Thanks again, Don, for coming and joining us today.
Thank you, and thank you for what you're doing. Just giving the opportunity to people to get to meet and be educated on what's going on. So
thanks, man.
What you're doing as well.
Oh, that's really generous. Thank you for saying that. All right, everybody. Don Smith, check him out on danriversports.com. We'll also have the long-form version of this interview up on the YouTube channel, so check him out there as well. And thank you for your time today. God bless you guys.
Take care.